We are so glad you've joined us today for Our Jewish Roots. Normally we bring you biblical series every week, but one of our favorite programs, I would say, is letters from our viewers like you. We've got some good ones. Are you guys ready for today?
I think I'm ready. Do we have like a warm-up question to get ready?
Give me an easy one.
Buckle up, boys.
Yeah.
I may not be good at test taking.
You've got a good one. Yeah.
But here's the thing. This is a program about biblical prophecy, and there are about 5 million different views because everyone has their own interpretation. So what we believe as a program is what you guys believe, and people have questions about that.
Okay.
And we want to answer those too, because we don't ever want to just talk and not listen.
Yeah.
So if we're presenting something in a way and it brings up more questions, we want to be able to answer those questions so that there is clarity.
And I think that's how people learn too. Yeah. Ask a question, get an answer.
That's called school.
You ready? School.
All right. Let's see what these guys have to offer us.
First of all, I just want you to know that we love you. Okay, before we start that. Okay, first question is actually a statement, I think.
Yeah.
I am not American, so this is not me. I did not write this. I'm not American. I am English and female. Okay. Why do you keep calling your listeners guys? Perhaps you might rephrase in light of the evil ways the enemy raises this issue in the kindergartens of these last days. There's the hefty part.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, that's kind of a loaded question.
It's a lot.
Guys, yes, we have mentioned guys a lot. Okay, in America, guys is a gender neutral term. And we're from New York. We grew up and we always used to say use guys for everything. You know that. And we had accent. We got rid of that accent.
We came here and we had to learn how to say y'all.
That's right.
Which is even more specific. But I think the habit of saying guys is just a colloquialism that kind of falls out.
Yeah.
But we definitely don't want to in any way make it seem like we're isolating anybody or only specifically speaking to men.
Hey girls,
well,
I'm just
we
playing.
understand the cultural difference of different people. My wife is European, and I understand, the misperceptions. We want to make sure we speak clearly to everyone and they understand it. So we're going to work on it. It's going to take us a while. we're going to, ladies and gentlemen, that's kind of long. We'll figure something out, but we'll work on it.
I have a way to fix that.
Yeah.
We'll have a jar right here. Every time you say guys, we put $1 in the jar.
Perfect.
The guy's jar.
Yes.
Okay.
I had somebody approach me the other day talking about the Red Heifer program, how interesting it was to them. So it's still really interesting what's going on with that. Here's a question. Are you ready?
Okay.
Are the sacrifices of the heifers going to catapult us into the tribulation?
Ooh, I just saw a question this morning, and someone was commenting that all the red heifer nonsense that's going on social media is just bonkers, quote, quote, bonkers. And it is, because there's so much misinformation about the red heifers. I would say, this is very specific, that the ashes of a red heifer will not begin the tribulation. It's as easy as that. What begins the tribulation is a peace treaty that is ratified with the beast, representing the nations and Israel. And so that even begins the construction of the third temple. So we can't have one without the other. Now, I see these as prophetic signs, I mean,
they're definitely signs, but if you want to be uber technical about it, they could get the ashes of the red heifer, hide them, not tell anybody that they did it, put it in a secret vault, and that's not going to start everything. You know what I'm saying? So that they could technically
have to burn it on that huge.
Right, but if somehow I'm saying if somehow they pulled it off in secret, they didn't tell anybody, there was no outcry from it happening. It didn't mean that just sacrificing them alone is what made it happen. It's what they do with those ashes, what happens next, and like you said, the coalition.
Well, look at the Temple Institute today. They've recreated the articles of the temple. They have the golden menorah. They have the golden altar. They have the showbread tables.
Incense, we've done a program on that.
They have the priest's vestments and all the articles. So they've already have everything prepared, but they're missing the ashes for the consecration, for the purifying of the priesthood, to begin the construction of the temple. So it is necessary. It's a necessary component. But
it's not the one that's going to
there's other rabbis that say you need all the ashes of the previous red heifer in the halal. When we met with those rabbis from the Temple Institute, we asked, is it necessary to have the original halal? Oh, no, it's okay. There's been a lot of cutting of corners, I believe, in making these
to get this happen.
Kosher, I think even if the cows are not kosher, as long as the Jews believe they're kosher, they're going to sacrifice it, they're going to have the ashes. It doesn't matter one way or the other in the long run, because this temple is not necessary in a sense that you're not going to have the fire come down from heaven like Solomon did when he consecrated the temple. The Shekinah, the presence of God, will not return to the third temple, but the Jews have to believe it. They have to believe this is God's temple and begin the sacrifices.
That's a whole different...
It goes way deep crazy, but yeah.
Okay, so well, speaking about that, about third temple, someone said, I've heard it taught that the Antichrist doesn't need a third temple to declare his reign from. He can do that from the great synagogue in Jerusalem.
Well, why don't you ask Satan about that? Like, hey, you've waited to sit on the mercy seat,
you sure you want to settle
your whole life. You got to settle for it? I don't think he's going to want to settle.
There's so many schools of thought. I mean, especially, boy, this third temple
remember,
is a hot topic.
This is the coup de grace for him, right?
Yeah.
This is the final slap in the face to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He's now sitting on the most holy seat that makes him God. Yeah. I don't know why he'd want to settle for sitting in the backyard and waving, hey, I'm still here. You know, it doesn't seem in his nature.
But scripturally, we have that moment in Daniel 9:27 where it says, you know, he will make that covenant, and in the middle of the covenant, he will break it. He will commit the abomination of desolation. Yes, that was partly fulfilled by Antiochus Epiphanes IV. But Yeshua says in Matthew 24:15, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken by the prophet Daniel standing in the holy place, not the great synagogue, then let the readers know and understand, flee to the wilderness, because this is going to begin the time of Jacob's trouble. So
that'll catapult it.
That will catapult it.
Right, that's the catapult.
So, yeah, the beast, I think he's going to go for the whole 9 yards because it's scriptural, and he knows he's going to fulfill the word of God in that way.
Okay.
So the question is that many are asking today is, when will the sacrifice happen with the heifer?
Oh, okay, Tuesday.
Ah.
No, not Tuesday.
I knew you would know.
Thank you for coming to our program. Right?
Well, first of all, to clarify, it's not really a sacrifice. The rabbis from the Temple Institute said this is more of a ceremony. This isn't a sacrifice. They need the ashes. The ashes are for purifying. It has to be mixed with hyssop, you know, and the water from the Gihon. You know, it's just meant to purify because of, you know, touching of dead bodies throughout history, and they need the articles consecrated to use in the temple, stuff like that. But when is that ceremony going to take place? Everybody's been asking us. Originally, the rabbi said it was going to be Passover 2024. By the time this airs, it will be past that moment. And they could have already done the sacrifice. We don't know. But they changed their mind for very many reasons. There was the head of Hamas declared that one of the reasons that they went to war against Israel was because they brought the heifers in, and that was, you know, they were going to try to destroy Al-Aqsa Mosque and all this. No, we found documentation that they had this plan for over a year, so that was not the case. But the government of Israel is very concerned right now, and they have tried for safety's sake. They don't want to start World War III.
Because we've talked about in our last series, it has to take place on the
Mount of
Olives, and there's squatters there at the moment.
Right?
Yeah, through the Eastern Gate in alignment with the temple.
So for it to happen, there's going to be somebody mad.
There's going to be somebody mad, but they have a timetable that's ticking down. When we were at the process of the selection of the heifers, that was in December 2021. They were 6 months old. They have to be sacrificed within the 3-year, you know, period. So, you know, the clock is ticking. They're going to have to do it sooner rather than later. So.
Whew, that's a lot. Okay, so people think a lot about what you guys say.
That's good. That's positive.
That's good. Yeah. Some people think a lot about what you say. So here's a
doozy.
This is a lot in this question. So it's layered and it's weighted and all of that. When you say, and they're talking to you, Jewish roots, make sure you specify the written words of Moses and the prophets as Jewish roots. The rabbis today have mixed the occult Kabbalah Talmud with the real Old Testament that Christians follow. The Jewish rabbis teach Talmud, right? Am I saying it right? Over the Old Testament. In the Talmud, they say Jesus is in hell boiling in his own body waste. Never knew that. The Judaism today isn't the same as the old Judaism. They've changed to the ancient mysteries they picked up in Babylon and brought it back. That could take a whole series. That's a whole series.
But you didn't call it Talmud, so that's good.
Thank you.
He's not wrong. He's absolutely not wrong. He or she who wrote that, the Jews today are consumed and elevate the rabbinical interpretation of Torah, which is Talmud, Mishnah, all that stuff together, over Torah itself. It is.
Now think about that concept, okay? Yes. Who gave the Torah to Moses? God.
Right.
So why would I listen to somebody else who's like, hold on, I know what God really meant when he was trying to say this, as opposed to God? Even for me personally, if I don't always know the specific theology behind it, I just think like with common sense that God gave me, that just doesn't even make sense. We go to the source.
Can I just say one thing though? So you guys kind of represent the Jewish roots. We're coming in with the Gentile Christian roots. We see it, well, you're in the church too. We see it all the time. People will follow this book or this author. He's this prophet, and they take his word over anything that might be truth in the Bible too. So I'm kind of like,
That's dangerous too, though.
The reason they do that is because they didn't have sacrifice and offerings anymore. They were scattered, and so they were trying to create a new way of worshiping, using traditions and stuff like that. I understand that, but there's some gnarly things written in those books that even dated at that time, you were like, really? You know? And so following that word for word is dangerous. Kabbalah, very dangerous, guys. This is the occult. This is dealing with palm reading. This is dealing with soothsaying and dealing with mysticism and all that stuff. God directs Moses many times in the Levitical law to avoid these things. So why are we following after these ancient mystic secrets, the deeper hidden knowledge, when God says to avoid it? That's very dangerous. But I think this also opens up a new can of worms, because we also get confused with the Hebrew roots movement. Have you heard of the Hebrew roots movement? No, you haven't.
There's so many
Please
specificities in all this. So it's a group of people who have decided that the law was never abolished, and so they still have to follow the Levitican law, even if they're Gentiles, not just Jewish people.
These are believers in Yeshua who want to follow Torah to the letter of the law. Now, obviously, we can't perform the sacrifice and offerings and all that. So what do? They mix in a lot of those rabbinical traditions and how they follow it. They say, we got to keep law kosher. Where it's like, well, why do you do that? You know, Yeshua fulfilled the law. They're like, oh, if we love him, we're going to keep the law. You're not required to. But then if you don't keep that law, then they kind of look down upon you. Wow, you're not keeping Sabbath. You're not celebrating the feast. We get confused with the Hebrew roots movement a lot. And it's not that we're bashing them in any respect, but scripturally, I like to look at Acts 15, the first Jerusalem council, in which there was a problem. More and more Gentiles were coming to faith in Yeshua, and the Jews were like, what do we do with these guys? The first Christians were Jews. You know, are they supposed to get circumcised? Are they going to keep kosher? Are they going to, keep the feast? And they didn't know what to do. So the first church where Yeshua's apostles, his disciples, they got together, they prayed, and the Holy Spirit directed them exactly what to do. Keep all the law. No, it wasn't about keeping all those regulations. It was about three things. It says, abstain from sexual immorality, from blood, strangled food, cook it all the way through, and avoid the meat sacrificed to idols. If you follow these protocols, you will do well, they said to the Gentiles. These are things. Now, obviously, they knew don't murder, don't do all these, but this was about that extra Jewishness. Do they have to, be extra Jewish to be followers of Yeshua?
Extra Jewish.
You're extra Jewish.
Well, obviously, but I just haven't heard that term before.
But it's interesting because, and the other day on social media, we read something. Someone said, the mark of the beast isn't on the forehead, it's not on the hand. It is those that worship on Sunday, not on Sabbath.
Ouch.
Right, but people, I don't know if they just so want to be right with God's law, but it's so interesting in today's day and age that they're so...
Well, here's my opinion, because that's a great question. My opinion is that in original sin, which is pride, and looking at yourself, there is a part of every human being that wants to earn it so they get to regulate it, right? So if I say that I earn my salvation, I can look down on other people, I can hold my head high in pride because I did all my sacrifices right. I can even look at God and say, well, hold on now, I have a say because I earned this. The reason that God specifically said, no, it's a free gift, is that eliminates the ability for any person to be able to interfere, take credit, look down, or do anything because he gave it. They can't earn it.
No boasting.
No boasting.
Right.
Humble heart.
That's
good.
All right. You ready for another one? Just somebody's disagreeing with you guys. We would never
Ever. How dare they?
We love.
This was online that somebody said, I would like to disagree with the Bearded Bible Brothers. There's nothing we mortals can do that will alter the timeline of the actions of God Almighty. We cannot change the beginning of any phase of this operation, no matter what.
I think
I'm putting my questions down for that one. Okay.
I think he was probably referencing our call over the last few years not to support the Third Temple project. I know we stirred the pot on that with Christians and Jews saying don't support the Red Heifer Project, don't support the Third Temple Project, and that's because I believe it sends mixed signals to the Jewish people. We're here trying to witness to them of the gospel of Yeshua, that he has come and this is the only way to heaven, yet at the same time, no, we'll support this other way for you to receive redemption. What kind of message is that? We should be focusing on our financial resources, on sending people out into the world and preaching the gospel of Yeshua.
But we also talk specifically about the fact that while you cannot alter the things that God has prophesied is going to happen, and specifically when we know that 2/3 are going to perish of the Jewish people, what we can alter is the starting number of that fraction. If we go out and minister and we lead millions of Jewish people in, that number can be way smaller to start. So 2/3 is a lot less people that have to be sacrificed and have eternal separation. So we've referenced that what we're talking about when it comes to changing, we're not changing God's prophetic anything.
We can't stop
we're simply trying to get as many people out of the things that we know that are going to happen from happening.
Yeah, I read letters, and I think you guys get that too. For 8 years, people are writing in, and people want to slow it down, people want to speed it up.
Yeah.
It's his timetable, right?
Technically, there's nothing we can do. It's in his timing, but there is scriptural precedence to humbling yourself, repenting, that gets God to extend the timeline, per se. There is Hezekiah. God said, you're going to die now. And he humbled himself. He got 15 more years. The Ninevites, God said, I'm going to wipe you out. They repented. They got a 100-year extension before destruction. Moses, God said, I'm going to wipe out all these people. And Moses said, please, God. And God relented from the destruction he was going to do. But the most important, I believe, is Josiah. King Josiah humbled himself before God, and God extended the timetable of judgment. Guys, we have an amazing series coming up that we shot in Israel during the war called Josiah and the Last Reformation. It's all about this message that we're talking about. We believe judgment is coming to America and to Israel because we have sinned against God, but there is a way to stop that judgment. I want you to take a look at these excerpts right now.
We are here at a familiar spot. If you have frequented our Jewish roots, this is the Southern Steps. Now this angle, this perspective is the one you usually see on the show. And right here we have first century structures. These are structures that Jesus himself, Yeshua, walked amongst.
That's right. Now let's arc around here. Change your perspective. There's ruins all the way down this location. Crazy ruins. You know, Jerusalem, it's layers of civilization stacked on top of each other because of war, invasion, and all these fire. You never know, but there's multiple layers, multiple time periods. When they dig away more of the dirt, you start to reveal more of the history. This behind us is called the Ophel. It's actually from the First Temple period. And they just recently made a lot of discoveries and found very important archaeological evidence in the Ophel.
Josephus, Antiquities of the Jews, Book 10, Chapter 4. And when he, Josiah, was 12 years old, he gave demonstrations of his religious and righteous behavior, for he brought the people to a sober way of living and exhorted them to leave off the opinion that they had of their idols, because they were not gods, but to worship their own God. And by reflecting on the actions of his progenitors, he prudently corrected what they did wrong, like a very elderly man, and like one abundantly able to understand what was fit to be done.
You know, old man Josiah, I actually really like that. God already bestowed great wisdom and knowledge on Josiah at such a young age. You know, he became king at the age of 8, but his hands were tied to matters of the state. Governor Messiah, Hilkiah the high priest, and the elders of the Senate had to take care of those matters for him. But he was trained up to learn how to rule by Akbar, his attendant. And Josephus says that, and thus he, Josiah, acted in following the wisdom and sagacity of his own nature, and in compliance with the advice and instruction of the elders.
However, it wasn't until Josiah was 20 years old that he was able to fully step into that mantle of ruling as king, because this was the legal age that Moses had laid down in the law of accountability, that a man was ready to do that.
That's right.
Don't even get me started on the legal age of manhood. 20, not even close enough. Most of the people I know, 37, maybe 42. They shouldn't be men. The people I've seen in America, not men. 2 Chronicles 34:3, in the 8th year of his reign, while he, Josiah, was still young, he began to seek the God of his father David. In this 12th year, at age 20, he began to purge Judah and Jerusalem of high places, Asherah poles, and idols. You know, I'm going to tell you, it's a little different things in Israel, some things. When you go to the cemetery to visit your loved ones back home, you see a headstone and they're below the ground. But if you can see here, all these people are buried above the ground. What's going on? Are they worried about flooding, brother?
No, I really think it's, they pay a lot of monies and they're like, hey, when Messiah comes, I want to push ahead in line, you know, like indulgences, you get to pay to be first in line to go to heaven, get that resurrected body. That's sort of a mentality here.
So these are line cutters here in the Mount of Olives.
These are line cutters.
They want to get to the line first because they think that the Messiah will think they're a good guy at life and let them to the front of the heaven line.
I'm not lying.
Look at that. He said to the people, "It is too much for you to go to Jerusalem. Here are your gods, Israel, who brought you up out of Egypt. One he set up in Bethel and the other in Dan, and this thing became a sin. The people came to worship the one at Bethel and went as far as Dan to worship the other." So this is where it all went down. A former high place for the Canaanites. Jeroboam decides that he's going to build a great place of worship atop those ruins, dedicated to the golden calf goddess of the Egyptians, Hathor.
I admit I was a bit disappointed to find no altar or golden calf at Tel Dan. Now I can't go idol smashing.
I don't know, brother. I'm no genius. I thought maybe we'd learned our lesson from Mount Sinai with the golden calf, but
A lot of
not.
death and destruction happened because of that event. Now here, as you can see, of this mock replica of the altar is where they found that Jeroboam built that brazen altar, and upon that platform where the golden calf was situated. Now, many archaeologists consider and believe that it's possible that King Josiah came here when he was cleansing the land. Deuteronomy 17:18-20 explains that it was the king's job to write his own personal copy of the Torah to lead him successfully in life through following God's laws. How quickly has that abandonment of God's word led to our destruction today? It's interesting that one of the things that modern man always prides himself on is his advancements. Each generation has something to benefit the future generation. They say, look what we did. Well, not unlike Manasseh in the past, today's generation likes to pride themselves on escaping the tyrannies of absolute truth. I mean, you see it with all individuals today that they have a mantra that everyone wants to go by. Find your own truth. This is no different from Judges 21:25 that said there was no king in Israel and everyone did what was right in his own eyes.
This idea of absolute truth being a problem is the idea that it forms a criticism and a hate. That if we were to speak a truth that everyone has to adhere to, then this would hurt people's feelings. This has been the cause of people to be bullied and the cause of people to receive hate crimes over the years. The problem with this is, even though the marketing sounds fantastic for find your own truth and makes you want to lock arms with everybody and sing Kumbaya, who does it stand against? Who's the truth that you're opposing that's absolute?
Yes.
Well, the truth is God, and the truth is His Word, and the truth is Torah. So when you say there is no absolute truth, what you're saying is there is no absolute God. There is no Messiah that I have to listen to.
Studying about King Josiah really probably isn't a hot topic right now, but you guys would differ with that thought, don't you? This has been a passion of yours.
God would
called
differ.
you.
Yeah, God directed us.
We really endeavor not to bring anything to the show that isn't something that we feel God is saying pertinently for right now. And Josiah was something that God laid on our hearts for us to show this reformation that he took Israel through And you asked the question, why? Well, we think the question was answered while we were on location filming, because as we were filming this, the war broke out. People lost their lives. They were taken captive. Literally, when I was in front of Abu Ghosh, I said, today, there are going to be people that lose their lives and be eternally separated. Over 1,200 people died that day. That day. And we're talking about the coming that's going to end all of time.
Yes.
We don't have any more moments in our life to waste. We don't have any more time to cater to ourselves, to do what we want, to say, I'll put it off till tomorrow. This message is so important today because God is calling and saying, I have extended my grace to you for so very long, but I'm drawing a line in the sand, and you're going to have to make a choice. And as your Father, I want you to be on this side of that line, but you have to repent and make that U-turn and put the sin behind you and come to me. And that's why I think this is such a powerful series.
For such a time as this.
Yes, ma'am.
That didn't just apply to Esther, but it applies to us right now.
Amen.
And I'm amazed at all the places that you were on location in Israel, just really amazing. First time for you.
Hey, it was a blessing. I've had many opportunities to go to Israel before that, but because of family, I was raising my children. God said, now's not the time. When he said now was the time, it was his divine timing, and he gave us a message, and we delivered it. And y'all guys are going to see that message very soon, starting next week.
You just said, guys, we need $1 for the jar.
$1 in the jar. Sorry.
Everyone, ladies and gentlemen, our close friends.
Yeah.
But we couldn't do it without your support.
Right. And I want to tag on that to all of you that are watching this program. The Colson brothers have so much more on their heart that they feel like God is calling them to share with you, with our viewer audience. And more than ever, we need your donations to make sure that the word continues to get out. But for right now, our time is over, isn't it?
We leave you with a song from our founder, Zola Levitt. The song is Speak to Me, but before I sing that, it's time to go, guys.
We leave you and ask you to Sha'alu Shalom Yerushalayim.
Pray for the peace of Jerusalem.
Lord, I know that you are near. Lord, I know that you will hear. Listening closely to my needs. Watching carefully over me. Oh Lord, I sing and dance to you with praise. In love and worship all my days. Even in my darkest hour, I'll know your voice, I'll feel your power.